Hello and welcome to the Outdoorsy Educator podcast, where stories become lessons and every journey has something to teach us. Every week I sit down with people from all walks of life to hear their adventures, explore their experiences, and uncover the insights that have shaped them along the way. Whether it's from the outdoors, the classroom, or any other path, each conversation offers a fresh perspective on learning, growth, and what it means to truly connect with the world and the people around us. And on this week's episode of the Outdoorsy Educator podcast, we have Elisha May. Elisha May, how are you today?
I'm very well and very happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Absolutely. So I'm Elisha May. I'm from the UK, and I'm a mixture of things. I'm very much an intuitive, sort of emotional alchemist and identity transformation specialist. So people that are undergoing that sort of identity crisis where their life no longer feels right, the relationship doesn't feel right, maybe the career, and they want to transition, but some people they know they want that, some people don't. But it's just a process that I walk people through, and it can be just somebody working with me for just a month because it's just one thing, and we go intense, we go deep, and they work with me for just a month. And then some people, it's a complete unraveling of the false self and a process of returning to self, hence the freedom of self is my brand. And people go on to make much more healthier, better decisions for themselves that's much more soul heart led than conventional or society led.
I'd be fascinated to learn what attracted you and got you into this field. How did your story in this field begin?
I didn't really have a choice, if that makes any sense. It's
Right.
been in me, it's been innate in me since I was a child. When I was 11, I was told I had energetic healing abilities, and because I'm an energy worker as well, and hence the alchemizing people's emotions and things. And I just knew I had a relationship with what I would call like my life force, my energy body, ever since I was a
hmm
kid. And I'd have these energetic experiences. And I always just had this knowing of I'm here to do something. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it looks like. I don't think it's conventional. I tried a million and one conventional things,
hmm
and I would always get bored because it just didn't feed me enough. It didn't have enough meaning. And so I sort of went through life as we all do, relationships, jobs, university. And then I realized I was like, should I do the corporate life? And something in my body just went, yeah, if you want to sell your soul and get sick. And I thought, oh,
Right.
yeah, no, I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to listen to that. Right. Okay. What do I do instead? And then I was at a point where I was like, do you know what? I need to travel. Like, I want to travel and work abroad. So I did that. And then sadly, just walked straight into a traumatic experience as a nanny. And then my mum had a psychosis when I was in the French out, just after I was in the French Alps.
hmm
And about 6 months later, my brother killed himself. And that was kind of the beginning of the end, but the beginning of the beginning, if that makes any sense.
Yes. Yes.
And so after he died, I was broken. Life just ended for me. Something in me died, something fragmented, so much of me was just in conflict. There was just this complete fragmentation process that I really remember being very visceral. And this was 14 years ago, and I still remember
Wow.
the process. And so for the last 14 years, it's been sort of putting that back together. But for the first seven, I was in survival mode. I had undiagnosed, unprocessed PTSD. I was barely dealing with my grief. I trauma bonded with a guy. That was a very unhealthy relationship, and that went on and off for about 7 years. I was running two businesses, mine and co-running his. Anyway, 2012 happened. Sorry, 2020 happened for me.
Yes.
Literally, it's the freakiest thing. Like just before COVID was announced, I'd already decided before COVID kicked off to go, right, that's it. I'm walking away from a chapter of my life. I'm done lying to myself. I'm done forcing myself to live a life that really feels so uncomfortable. I'd weaned myself off of antidepressants as well. And I was 30, I think I was 32. This is about 8 years ago. And I just sold everything as much as I could. I sold everything. And I went back home to my parents and I
Hmm.
moved into their annex, which is just one bedroom. So I had to have as little stuff as possible.
Right.
And for me, the first 3 months of COVID were some of the best months of my life. They were very freeing. It was guilt-free time off being self-employed. But it was also a reckoning. I was dealing with absolute bliss in nature, but I was also dealing with an anxiety and a breaking down of my old self and identity. And that's a very uncomfortable place to be when you don't have external support. And then, quite often, as we know with the saying, is when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And a
Yes.
few months later, my first mentor came into my life. I was led down a path, realized I had to own the fact that I was an empath. I then was introduced to being a highly sensitive person. Even though I'd known those things, I didn't realize it was like a label and a permission slip, that actually I could be both passionate and fiery, but also really, really sensitive. And then it just led from one thing to another. I just knew that there was a calling in me, this, okay, I've learned so much and I want to share this with everybody. And I was even doing it as a teenager. And a school friend
Right.
and I caught up a couple of months ago, and he said, I cannot thank you enough for the conversations we had when we were 15. He's like, you changed my life. So I've always
Wow.
so I've always intuitively, being an empath, I've always been very intuitive with everybody, and I can feel people's needs. I can feel what they want and need in that moment. And over the years, a lot of my girlfriends would come to me because they're going through a tough time, and I would just sort of facilitate that space for them to just be in those feelings and work through them. And so it was always in me. And then I just got really serious in the last sort of, yeah, 6 years. And it's just been a path that's been building and building and building. And, training, doing my own healing, and we'll go on to the nature stuff in a minute, because
Hmm.
that's been a huge, huge part of my healing. And then really got serious with the sort of coaching side probably about 3 or 4 years ago, but really in the last sort of 18 months, I've been really like so dedicated to it.
I've got so many questions to ask you, so if I end up jumping around a bit, I
Go for it.
apologize. One word that you said that I read on your website, and it just stood out to me because I feel that the perception of this word is changing, is sensitive. It used to be, in my eyes, through just my own lens, it used to be perceived in society as a weakness.
Right.
Right. And I feel like the conversation around that word is changing. But I was curious, what misconceptions perhaps do you see about people who are becoming sensitive or feeling things? Is there still a sort of pushback to being sensitive?
There could well be out in the world. For me now, because of the
Right.
journey I've gone on myself, I
Yes.
I wear it as, excuse the language,
No, you're
I'm
fine.
fucking sensitive and I don't give a fuck.
Right.
Like that's
Right.
my attitude. It's like I have a very sensitive nervous system. It gets dysregulated. I get overwhelmed. If things are too bright, if things are too loud, if I'm peopled out, if I'm overworked, I need to look after me. And if you
Hmm.
don't like that, that's on you. But that took me years. That took me a very, very long time
Right.
to own and embody. My late brother, when I was a teenager, he would always say to me, he'd say these two things. He's like, sis, you're so sensitive. It's like, I know. What do I do about
Right.
it? Because I'm also really angry. And because I'm so frustrated. And he would also say, but you're also like a nuclear power station. He's like, you've got so much energy. And this is often the paradox of a sensitive person, is that when we're not in our power and we're not fully embodied in who we are, we come across weak. but we also are aware that we've got an innate power within us as well, but we don't know what to do with it. Because
Mm.
for me, I had the stories of, you're too sensitive, therefore you must be broken. Oh, you therefore must be weak. And oh, you're so loud, and oh, you're so confident, and don't be this, and don't be too loud, but don't be too sensitive. It was like, oh my God, what do you want me to be? Am I supposed to be sensitive and weak, or am I supposed to be powerful and confident? Because which is it? Because I can't. I was really struggling because I would always bounce between the two, and I was exhausted.
Right. And then, of course, what do you want me to be rather than what do I want to be myself,
Right.
which is
Right.
exhausting when you're trying to fit into somebody else's box and not
Yeah,
find out who you truly are.
that's it. Because as a sensitive, you're so perceptive to other people's feelings. So if somebody around you is feeling uncomfortable because of your deep emotions, or the fact that you're feeling a bit raw in that moment, it's we just spend our lives morphing ourselves and suppressing ourselves. And this isn't just sensitives. But it is for us. It's I don't know if it's more of a painful process, but it is this, oh, okay, I'll be a bit quiet, and or I'll change myself to make you comfortable.
Yes.
Because it's that self-abandonment, isn't it? It's that, okay, well, I'll make sure your needs are met over mine.
That's something that, as we talked about off air, I spent well over a decade in primary school, elementary school classrooms. And that was often when we went into classrooms where there was issues with behavior, it was the child was trying to become what the teacher needed rather than the teacher being what the child needed.
Right.
Yeah,
And
and
that's a
again,
great way of describing it.
and
Yeah.
that's an 8-year-old brain. I mean, this is difficult enough for a 28 or 30-year-old brain to work through.
Yeah.
But these
Yeah.
children were exhausted trying to be what they thought the teacher needed or what the teacher said they needed to be.
Yeah.
And then these behaviors come out because they couldn't contain actually who they were.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And they have that conflict of, they don't understand. They're like, yeah, but I just want to be me. I don't understand why I can't just show up as me, but I'm being unaccepted. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
yes. Oh, it was, I mean, we saw this so much. There was a child who would need to, for example, who would learn and absorb the lesson when they could move, when they could sit and draw while they were occupying their hand. They would absorb, but it would drive the teacher crazy that they were drawing and not put in their perception, focusing. And
That's it.
so often these mislabeled and misbehaving quote unquote children, the issue was with the teacher and not the child.
And
So
yeah, exactly. And as you'll know, and this came for me later on in life, particularly when I looked into how people learn things, where it's you're either a visual or you're a movement based person, or you've got to read it. And then when you look at your human design, there's a way of knowing how you input information, how you thrive on learning. And that's the thing. It's like it's not a one size fits all. Every child, every human
mhm.
learns, takes in information completely different to the next person.
100%. And I think this kind of leads nicely to one of my next questions I've got written down. And I don't know the statistics, and this is again is just through my lens, but there appears to be emotional exhaustion. Just in general, I get a big
Yeah.
generalization, but in society, why do you think many people feel so disconnected from themselves? If indeed you
Um,
do, if you do.
Yeah, well, why? I mean, it could be unprocessed trauma, it could be unprocessed wounding, it could be conditioning, it could be that they didn't have their needs met as a child. And again, you've got, coming back to your point about the kids, where it's like they just want to be themselves, but the teacher is
Mhm.
saying, no, don't be yourself, be this. So people go through life, and like I did, I was so emotionally exhausted because we aren't brought up in a world yet, or we're going that way, of all your feelings are allowed at any given point. They need to be processed.
Yes.
And so many of us go through life and situations and difficulties, or, like I said, traumatic events, or whatever it is, whether it's small or large, And we're never given time and guidance to process those emotions, whether it's sadness, whether it's anger in that moment. But once we get to a point as a humanity where the parents understand emotional processing, they can then facilitate that space for their child in any given moment of like, oh, you're feeling really, really sad right now. Okay, let's just allow that to move through you, because when you think of emotions, it's energy, right? We are
Yes.
energy. And so, if you don't let that energy move through you, whether it's sadness, anger, frustration, happiness, like whatever it is, if you don't let that move through you, it then kind of stays blocked in your system, in your psyche, in your energy body, in your emotions, mental, wherever it is, and it just kind of stays there stagnant. And then, I mean, there's another conversation with that as well. So with
Yes.
my line of work, I'm able to help people alchemize these emotions that have been stuck for years and years and years. So one client last year, she had a very, very deep wound around men and her ex. And she was coming out of a 15-year relationship, but this was an ex 20 years before. And I could feel in my body, I thought, yeah, we've reached this point that you're going to have to feel this emotion, because once you just let it move through you, it's going to release so much, unlock so much, and then allow the right person to come through. I mean, I'm putting it very, very simply.
Of course.
And
Yes.
so, yeah, but it is a very uncomfortable process. Like I've had to do years and years of emotional processing because I had so many emotions from a child that I was like, it's like, oh no, you can't cry, you're at school, you're not allowed. No, you can't feel this emotion. So you bottle it up
Yep.
because you can't. It's either break time or it's lunchtime or you're stuck in science class or whatever it is. And you're dealing with this emotion, whether it's jealousy or fear or whatever it is. And because you don't have the tools to know how to just accept it, acknowledge it, and let it move through you, it just gets stuck. So yeah.
Yes. And yeah, it grows and grows in a negative way.
Yeah, and it
It's,
compounds.
yeah, it's going to come out at some point,
Oh yes.
you know. So
That's
it's,
midlife crisis.
right. Absolutely. And yeah, it just, again, I was expecting this conversation to mirror so much of what happened. I was a teacher and then I was a behavioral coach, and I worked with students and with teachers in the school system, because we had children who were very emotionally dysregulated, but also a lot of staff. And that was just a bad mixture. So we worked with both parties to kind of find common ground and move forward. And let's use these tools.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something I think we all have to work with and all have to be aware of, I think, how to deal and process. And I love this visualization of emotions flowing through us.
Yeah,
Um,
like a wave, just it's like
yes,
grief. Grief comes in waves. At the beginning, when you lose somebody, those waves are just relentless and they're smashing at you. And then over time, they still come sometimes, but they get slower. The distance between them gets longer and things. But yeah, with our emotions, it is about, like I said, their energy, its movement, and just allowing it to just move through you. It really is. It is a game changer when we stop fighting them, because it gets to a point, I think, that I did with my journey, and this is years ago, and I remember particularly in those really dark years, in those 7 years, where I was so terrified of dealing with them that I thought, once I open Pandora's box, I don't know if I can close it again.
right.
And that is scary because you don't know the version of you that's on the other side.
Yes,
You really don't. And so
right.
because you don't know the version of you that's going to be on the other side, you're kind of like, I'm just not going to deal with Pandora's box. I'm just not going to deal with my Pandora's box. But life went, no, you're dealing with this now.
Yeah, better the devil you know sometimes is what we default to. And
Yeah.
yes, again, I think we could see that in all manner of relationships. throughout our life. I'd love to steer this conversation towards the outdoors. We first got in touch because of a picture you had online of you standing on, I'm guessing it's a Land Rover,
Yeah.
standing on the front, and we discussed car camping. One of my passions, one of my great escapes is jumping in the back of my car and going out and spending a weekend at the lake or the mountains. How does the outdoors impact your life, both personally and also in your line of work?
Yeah, so I've had Maximus, my defender. I've had
Yes.
him for 10 and a half years, and he's my trusty steed.
Yes.
And I spent years driving him in my previous chapter, just really as a sort of just a normal car. We lived in the countryside, and it made sense. And it's funny how I remember being a teenager thinking, I really like defenders. Like we're talking 20, 25 years ago.
Yes.
And I thought, I really like defenders. I'd love one of those one day. And I thought, you don't live on a farm. Don't be so stupid.
Right.
Right. I let that go. And then the guy that I was with for 7 years, he kind of not forced me to buy one, but he's like, they're the best vehicle, just buy it. Da,
Hmm.
da, da. Anyway, so I had it. And then it was about 7 years ago, I was um so yeah, I was back with my parents, and what do? I go online dating.
Right.
And I meet a guy who we're still friends to this day, and I love that. He's a very good friend. And it was summer 2020, and we went in the back of his Range Rover, which was a 1980s, similar age to mine. And we went and slept in the back of it on Exmoor. And I woke up the next day and I thought, oh my God, this is heaven.
Yep.
This is heaven.
Yep.
And even though that had been building for a couple of years before that, this idea of just like jumping in the Defender and going off places, I didn't do it because I didn't know how.
Hmm.
And I thought, how do I get from A to B? I don't know how. And I'd slept in my ex's van a couple of times, but there was just something about this Range Rover with the flap down and the view across Porlock Weir. And I thought something's just clicked. And it was amazing. And then I think it was maybe a week or two later, there was just something in me. And I was off work because I couldn't legally work because I was a beauty therapist at the time. So
Right.
I couldn't legally work. So I had some free time. And something in me was just like, just get in the Defender and just do it. And I
Good
just
for
was
you.
terrified. I was terrified. I know that sounds really crazy, but I was absolutely, something in my body was just like, just do it. Just do it. It just didn't make any sense. And the first night, I just roughed it. Proper
Good.
roughed it.
Good.
And I was so uncomfortable and I didn't sleep because I was paranoid I was going to be attacked. I was paranoid people were going to nick my Defender,
Yep.
and I just proper roughed it. But there was just a magic about that. It was this, how have I gone from a three-bedroom house running two businesses to roughing it in the back of my Defender at 32?
Yeah.
It was just a bizarre moment, but I thought, this feels really freeing.
Yep.
It just felt so freeing. And then I realized I'm onto something here. And I think I did one night, and then a couple of weeks later, I did 2 nights. And my parents were like, just do it, just do it. And all my friends were like, you're crazy. You're like, that's so dangerous. I was like, how is sleeping in the back of my car on Exmoor dangerous? Do you
Right.
come on?
Yeah.
It's not like Kazakhstan or, in I don't know, really other, not that Kazakhstan's necessarily dangerous, but like not crazy places. So
Right.
anyway, it just clicked. It did something to me. It just awoke something in me. But at the same time, I didn't sleep. I was absolutely so insomnia has been really bad. It's like it's much better these days. But after my brother died, insomnia was a real problem for me. And so I'd go wild camping in the back of my Defender, and I found this particular spot, and for the first few times I was always paranoid, like, oh my God, I'm gonna get screamed at. Like it
Hmm.
really brought up a shit ton of my trauma that I didn't realize I hadn't dealt with. And
Right.
that was pretty scary. And I just remember just like waking up in the like barely sleeping, but if I did wake up, I would panic. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, where am I? What am I doing? What am I doing? Oh my God, I might just drive home. But I just kept with it and I kept with it. And I've been doing it 7 years now. And ironically, I was going to do it Tuesday night, no, Monday night, but the clutch has gone, so I didn't. But I was going to do it on my way to the Peak District. And it just, each time I went, my parents could see that when I came back, I was more myself.
Yes.
They could just see this is doing something to you. And I was like, I know I can't describe it. 2 nights really did so much. One night was good, but there was something about 2 nights completely on my own, barely talking to anybody, driving off, going for walks, dipping into a river. I'd often find a river to just wash myself,
Hmm.
or I'd jump in the sea, whatever it was. And I had to work through a lot of uncomfortable feelings in my body of, despair, aloneness, grief, like because I'd allowed myself finally some proper stillness
Right.
and there were no distractions. Quite often there'd be no signal. And it just, it was the most, almost kind of on one level, the most uncomfortable experience, but the most freeing experience at the same time.
I can resonate with this so much. I've done many multi-day hiking trips, and I'll never forget this moment. I did the New Jersey section of the Appalachian Trail 2 years ago, which is 100 miles, give or take, and it was bizarrely emotional. Yes, the scenery was beautiful, and yes, I enjoyed it. And to this day, I don't really know why, but there was something about no distractions, no nothing. You're just walking, and I almost felt like sort of tearing up. And like I said, I don't know why, but it does bring something out of you when you can just disconnect. When you were talking about people saying it's dangerous, and you were slightly worried, a good friend of mine always talks, and it's a common phrase about packing your fears. And I had to really think about the fact that I would always pack several power banks for my phone because I had this fear of somebody, I'm married, I have children, needing me and the guilt of not being available. And it was like, all right, what's driving this fear? And it was this fear of being selfish because I'm taking care of myself. And that manifested itself in having to ensure that my phone was always charged to compensate for this perceived selfishness.
That's so interesting because I had a similar thing with my parents that with my mum's episodes of ill health and things like that
Hmm.
and just feeling like I was like, the only child left. And when I was like, okay, I'm disappearing for 24 hours, 48 hours. So they're like, that's fine, we'll be okay. And I'm like, are you sure you're going to be okay? Because it's like, what if you need
Right.
me? What if somebody has a breakdown? What if somebody ends up in hospital? Like, what if I'm not
Yes.
there for you? So I can relate to a point with what you said. And but
Yes.
my what was interesting with my fears was I was noticing my two fears was running out of drinking water and running out
Hmm.
of food
Yeah.
because I go into like a panic when I'm hungry, my sugar level like after about 2, 3 hours, my sugar levels drop because I have a high metabolic rate, so I have to sort of snack regularly. And so there was always this fear of like, oh my God, have I got enough food? And the crazy thing is I could just drive to the shops.
Right.
But my
Right.
brain was like, no, you're in the wild. The wild. I'm on Exmoor. But it
Right.
was this like, no, Alicia, you're doing wildness. You're rewilding yourself. You
Yes.
cannot go to the shop halfway through. You cannot go and get fish and chips. You're not
Right.
allowed.
That's not being authentically wild, a wild camper. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So making sure I had the right amount of food, the right amount of water. But I definitely could resonate with what you just said there with the phone. I remember going through a lot of like I felt really selfish not being available for my parents in case they needed me.
Yeah, 100%. Again, so many thoughts kind of going around my head. I've got a good friend of mine who goes camping a lot and has quite a big presence online. and made a video once about all this. He loves cooking when he's camping. Like that's his thing. He brings the chopping boards, the all the ingredients, and it's a production and it's amazing. But he made a video once about trying to make sure that it didn't look complicated. He's like, if you need to bring a pizza that you have picked up on your way to the campsite, do it. If that's what it takes for you to be able to disconnect and turn off and low stress, for him, cooking is an avenue to getting the stress out. But if that causes you stress, it doesn't need to look like this. This works for me.
Yeah.
Bring a sandwich from home. That's you're just as much wilding and camping and all of that as anyone else.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
so, so true because a guy that I dated 5 years ago, his thing was cooking. That was his thing. So when we
Mhm.
went camping and stuff, he was the cook and I loved that. But
Right.
very much for me, there is something beautiful about cooking outside. I'm not gonna lie, there is
Right.
something
Oh, I'm right there with you.
magical. I do really understand your friend, but for me, it was a case of like, I was like, no, I'm just gonna rough it. I'm just gonna take pre-cooked stuff and snacks and just yeah, make it work. And like you said, it's
Yes.
this idea of what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. And society is starting to get that message of it's not one size fits all in anything. It's like, look, if that works for you, do it. If that works for you, do it. And again, coming back to the sensitive thing, it's like, look, I'm sensitive. I run on a very particular design of a setup, and
Mhm.
I know what works for me, and what works for me might not work for another person, and vice versa.
Absolutely. And another level of that I've discovered is I look at my purpose for going camping when I go. If I go myself, I will take something to cook and prep because I enjoy that and I find it very cathartic. If I go camping and friends are joining me, we've got a couple that we often go with. We will just grab some sandwiches or something on the way because the purpose of that trip is reconnection and fellowship with our friends that we may not have seen in a few months. I don't want to be over there at the chopping board. I,
Right.
I want to be with my friends and reconnect. So yeah, I look at what I need myself, but then also this situation. What is it that I needed this precise weekend in my life? What's gonna really
Yeah.
re-energize me?
Yeah, absolutely. And you said the word re-energize, and that's what I really found with the wild camping. And the more I did it, just it was almost like the more I did it, the quicker I would click back in to myself. And the first few times were always the hardest. And sometimes the evening was a struggle. Like you're in your own
Hmm.
company. You can't just stick on the TV. You can't just stick on Netflix. And it's like, okay, so I've got to read a book. And I just remember these anxiety attacks that I would
Hmm.
have in the evenings of all this stillness of like, I've got no one to talk to. And but once I unwound, there was this beauty of waking up the next day. Where's the nearest river that I can just freshen up in? Where
Yes.
where can I just jump into and just, being barefoot, just allowing nature to just kind of consume you again. I just always remember feeling this wild woman was waking up in me, this grounded, wild, woman. And I always kind of get more into nature in the summer months for obvious reasons. It's
Right.
warmer and whatnot. And I get very crampy in the winter. Like come February, I'm just cabin fever.
Yes.
Um, but there I just always, whenever I think of the wild camping, it's so nostalgic for me. It's just like I'm just I'm just a human. I'm just a
Right.
human. And I'm just sat at this river or I'm sat in these woods and I'm just being. And it's almost like I'm no longer Alicia. I'm no
Hmm.
longer a daughter. I'm no longer a such and such. Everything just starts to break away. And then I sort of remember, oh yeah, I'm just a human. I'm just a mammal
Hmm.
on planet Earth.
It's a very comforting thing, I find, to think of myself like that.
Yeah.
It's not to say that we're insignificant, but we're certainly just part of something huge that we can't really understand. And I find great comfort in that, where I
Yeah.
suppose some might find discomfort. I quite like that feeling.
Yeah. I do too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, as we kind of come round to the home stretch, I've got three questions I would like to ask you. One is when I talk to people, we all want to be successful, but what's that looks like and what that means is very different to different people. And I'd be curious as to what success looks like to you and if that has changed over the years.
Yeah. No, it's definitely changed over the years. When I look back to sort of, again, my dark period, it was much more not materialistic, but it was this external stuff because to me, I thought, well, that's got stability. People will acknowledge that achievement, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
But actually, I've gone back to what I was actually before all that crap, and it's coming back to my values, which is freedom, fun, and impact. And to me, if to me success is being able to live with those on a daily basis. To me success, if I can wake up and be my authentic self and live in integrity, like that's a fucking successful day. um
Right,
the fact that I can have freedom of self, I've returned to self, like that's fucking successful.
right.
I've gone from wanting to check out of this world many many times
Hmm.
to wanting to now live it to the ultimate degree within my passions and wants and desires. Um, so to me, that's successful going from complete, yeah, just wanting to check out to wanting to live life as much as possible. That to me is successful. Don't get me wrong, I want a certain amount that pays each month or over a year where it's like I pay my bills and I've got
Yep,
some fun money. Like my bills are paid and I've got some fun money and some
right.
savings. Like to me, that's great. I don't need to be a millionaire. Yes, I joke that I want to be a millionaire by 45.
Of
I have
course.
that joke. But to me, successful is waking up where I get to be myself and I get to do meaningful work that is going to enable other people to live life that they want for themselves. Like that to me is successful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with, I mean, we all would like to, okay, if I could just make this much money and all of that. But I think if you tie your definition of success to it, and although if I could just have this amount in the bank, I would be happy. It's a very dangerous road when it defines your happiness or becomes the goal.
Right. It's a convenience. It's
Great,
an
yeah,
absolute convenience, isn't it?
yes,
But for me, the success is happy with or without money. That is success.
right. I know, I couldn't agree more. I always like to ask my guests, everyone has a favorite book, but I was curious as to what might be the most impactful book you have read.
Oh
And
gosh.
this one often puts people on the spot,
Yeah,
so I do
it really does.
apologize.
Only because I've read a lot and
Yeah.
I've started a few that I haven't finished and
Uh,
I've loved the beginning of them.
hmm.
But because I haven't finished them, I can't really say. But and do you know what it is? Book for me,
Hmm.
books come into my life at very specific times.
Right.
And the few that I was say reading 5 years ago blew my mind. And they
Yes.
were just like, oh my gosh, they helped me so much. But I couldn't say that now about them because I'm like, well, no, the books since then have been really, really helpful. Um,
Right.
but I mean,
You could,
I suppose if I think of two at the moment that I'm
yes.
going through is Joe Dispenza's something about supernatural. It's quite an old book of his, but I've
Right.
just started to get around to reading him because I love his work and because of my line of work is the mind body soul coherence like his work. Then I really really enjoyed beginning to read Gabor Mate, The Myth of Normal, I think that's what it's called. I started that, haven't finished it yet, and again, really, really enjoyed that. But
Right.
over the years, there's definitely several books that I've come across that at the time really changed my life.
I
Yeah.
think that's really interesting. It's almost like relationships.
Right.
Different periods of your life you need or are willing and able to accept different things. And I suppose that is the same for books, is it? For
Yeah.
things you're consuming. My sort of penultimate question for you is if you could choose somebody to spend a day or a weekend with, go for a walk in the countryside, and talk to them about how they have found or are finding themselves, their authentic self, who would it be and why? And this could be somebody in your life, somebody famous, dead, alive, anybody that's ever existed. If you could talk to them about finding your authentic self and their journey, who would you like to talk to?
That's an amazing question. Because somebody asked me on a podcast yesterday about like who would you want to be in a room with, to have a conversation. But the way you've worded it's really fascinating. And actually, the person that's coming up for me is actually my brother
Right,
because because he left 14 years ago. So to be who I am today, I would love and I've played with this a few times, is I'd love to be able to just walk side by side and talk about my journey, talk about his journey, and finding that return to self and the authentic self. So he would definitely be one of them. There's definitely some greats in the world,
yes.
the famous ones.
Hmm.
I think yesterday I was like, oh, Mary Magdalene could be cool because, she was pretty cool for her
Right.
time. And I know it sounds, again, it's cliche to say Jesus, but like,
No.
again, what he went through and the fact that the Bible was created on off the back of him, I'd love to know what his opinion is of Christianity and the Bible, considering he's a Jew. Like,
Right.
right,
Fascinating.
I'd love to have that kind of conversation. But then equally, I'd love to chat to Gabor Mate or Joe Dispenza. But when you start thinking about it, like the list is endless. But I think
Yes.
when you asked me that question, my brother did come to the forefront.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Well, if people have questions for you, want to find out more about what you do, where's the best place to find you or to reach you?
Yeah, I'm always on Instagram every day. My handle is I am Elisha May, as in the month. And so, yeah, you can find me on Instagram, but I am on LinkedIn as well. And I've got my website, which is freedomofself.com.
I love it. Well, Alicia May, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today.
And thank you so much for having me. And it has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you again to this week's guest, and I hope today's episode was as enjoyable for you as it was for me, and perhaps even inspired your next adventure. If you did enjoy the show, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find more information at theoutdoorseyeducator.com or follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. Until next time, thank you so much for listening to the Outdoorsy Educator Podcast.